Hello, world. It's Hilary and me. I'm Slayer Green and Hilary Stringer from France, who's originally UK, aren't you? But you're in
Yes,
France,
I am.
running a beautiful place at the moment in France. It's like a dream place, isn't it? It's beautiful. And Hilary and I are both contributors to Love Letters from the Future. And so I wanted Hilary to read hers because I have to say I loved yours. It's very innovative as you work with innovators, and that's who you are. I thought yours was really innovative and came from a, a, a different place of looking and writing, which was quite brilliant. So I thought everybody would enjoy hearing about it. So is there anything you want to say first about the writing of it or the book or anything like that before you read yours?
Maybe I'll say something at the end if I
Okay.
read it
Yeah.
through, and then I can talk about what inspired me and
Yeah.
why I picked this as my topic. But
Yeah.
thank you for your kind words.
Yeah, go for it.
So, Love Letter from the Future. I'm number 7. I like being number 7. It's one of my best numbers. By Hilary Stringer in France. It started with a seed, or a slice of tomato, or a straggly plant handed from one neighbour to another. They planted them without much expectation of anything really happening. I don't have green fingers. How's that going to work in my flat? I don't have time to spend on this. But the seed grew. The tomato slice pushed out little green seedlings. The straggly plant put out its real leaves and started to strengthen. And they watched, warily at first, but with a glimmer of hope. The seedlings turned into plants. The plants started to delight with small flowers of every colour and size. The bees and insects came to pollinate the flowers. And they started making relationships with these plants. The half-hearted watering became more regular. They began to watch YouTube clips on how to look after them. They joined Facebook groups where people were sharing their experiences of being first-time gardeners. The old seasoned plants people, that's me, were delighted to be asked for their advice. And so communities formed around their delight. Out of the flowers came the first buds of the produce. From the white pepper flower, a small green pod that looked just like the real thing, but tiny. From the yellow tomato flower, a green pea that smelled just like the moment you take the stalk off those big red ripe tomatoes. And they hadn't quite expected the excitement of how it feels to parent a seed to this point. All over the cities and towns, people started looking for more space to grow. Window boxes sprouted on the front of tower blocks. Shops and restaurants used their street space for large planters for herbs and salads. In the suburbs, the first raised beds started appearing in back gardens. And so it went. Big tubs for potatoes came next, sand beds for carrots. As well as the raised beds, people started to transform their front lawns into spaces for growing. Instead of the flat, green expanses that were so thirsty for water in the summer, mixed beds started popping up with flowers and vegetables growing in happy harmony. Cauliflowers next to the dahlias, green beans making poles of glorious red teepees of flowers before their fruit arrived. Neighbours copying and competing, and the urge to keep up with the Joneses was a big boost to the movement. Guerrilla gardeners started planting on urban derelict sites. Communities with no access to outside space colonised area that had gone unloved for decades. Concrete wastelands became productive again in small oases. The law enforcers turned a blind eye. The police stations had their own tomato garden now, and they understood the need to grow. Local authorities noticed and started looking at what could be done in public spaces. More trees were being added for shade to try and combat the effects of city heat in summer. So they decided to plant fruiting trees where everybody could share in the autumn bounty. Car parks became greener with planters and climbers around the perimeter fences. The homeless now had a regular source of fruit and vegetables, once people got over the idea that taking the produce was stealing, and attitudes began to shift. In schools, the curriculum was changed to meet the demands of children to know more about what their parents and carers were doing. The link between field and fork became stronger, and they began to learn where their food came from. School playing fields had a corner now dedicated to a garden that the children ran themselves. Older children sold produce from the garden as part of business courses to understand the economics of production. Those with more space started keeping hens, and the eggs formed part of the value chain. The pressure was now on the corporate world to do more. Large office buildings sprouted greenhouses on their roofs. Local production was carried to local shops, breaking the chain of long-distance distribution in favour of no-miles sourcing. With people spending more time working from home, incentives were started to get them growing at the same time. On their office days, people started veg swaps and began to coordinate between themselves who was growing what, so the inevitable seasonal gluts could be spread around and used. And so it continued. Each summer, the proportion of gardens given over to food production became greater. The country began to be able to feed itself again, rather than being dependent on imports. People's health improved as they started making healthier choices, now that they had healthier choices to make. Children's addiction to junk food started to diminish as they saw the conditions in which their food was made and wanted better options. The exercise in tending the gardens saw an improvement in people's mobility and a reduction in the obesity crisis. Communities began to grow together. The older members had residual wisdom from their own childhoods and had the time to become the wise elders that they had once been. People came to them for advice. They had time to spend with children explaining how nature works. Groups naturally came together in the green spaces to share childcare responsibilities and allow hard-pressed working families some downtime. They played computer games that revolved around nature and her magical ways. Their gaming connected them globally with other communities that were doing the same. The internet became a force for good in bringing people together. The innovators were also busy. Novel ways to capture water to feed the growing gardens became mainstream. A whole world of kits became available that made gardening possible in every conceivable location. Local energy sources helped to pump in irrigation systems. Battery technologies improved so that greenhouses could be sustainably heated using the excess energy generated. Construction of new homes, offices, factories now incorporated green spaces as standard. Modular buildings with space for planting became the legal requirement. And so there was a market worth developing for, and develop they did. As I look back now from 200 years in the future, it seems impossible that it wasn't always like this. Of course, there are those who really don't have green fingers and prefer to help out in other ways. But for most people now, green runs through their veins and connects them to the earth. Our cities are cooler and filled with vegetation. Insect populations recovered and the bees are doing well again. We have eliminated factory farming and gone back to sustainable production that works in harmony with nature. Our diets have changed radically, but we love our food even more than before. Hyper-processed food is now rejected globally. We're making better choices because we took action. We gave ourselves choices. And that small step into creating our own food started a chain reaction of making other positive choices for ourselves and the planet. The power of one seed, one plant to change the world has gone into history. Makes me very emotional, that last part, because for me, the seed is everything. It's potential, it's a whole richness, a whole world of nature in there. And all you have to do is give it time, love and attention and some water, and miraculous things happen.
Yeah, and I just love, you started with the simplicity of the seed, but how it has a ripple effect through everything that changes it all. So I love that.
Because when we see that we can make a difference, then you start making a difference with other things. Someone who's never grown, I've been growing since I was a child. We didn't have much money when I was small, and my father had an allotment, and the produce was a really important part of our diet. So I've always had my hands in the soil, and I'm never happier than when I've got soil under my fingernails and ripped fingernails and my feet are dirty. And that's my happy place, because the microbes in the soil also are part of my biome, I live in synergy with all of these things, and we are happier and healthier if we interact with the soil because it's full of really good enzymes. Oh, excuse me, that's my phone.
That's okay.
ringing when it shouldn't.
No problem.
So yes, my happy place is growing, and I can't imagine not having it in my life.
Yeah.
And when this year with lockdown, we didn't know whether we were going to be able to get out and get seeds. So I chopped a tomato into slices, and they grew. And I'm eating the last of the tomatoes off the plants now. And
wonderful.
Fantastic thing. I'd never tried that before.
Yeah.
But my joy in having my little tomato slice give me tomatoes was just unmeasured.
That's wonderful. And, you know, both you and I think we both have a really positive view of the future, if you could say that. It's more than that, I think, because we're creating it as well. But I love that all the love letters in the book really kind of personified a view that, hey, this is turning out. There are days it might not look and feel like that, but really there's huge significant improvement in the world. And we tend to see, focused to the media and stuff, all the problems, but there's so much better, like the biodiversity of the soil. And I love David Attenborough's latest A Life on the Planet. Just moved me so deeply to watch that, to see how simple it would be to just like your letter, you know. So
but every day it's bad, somebody changes their mind. Every day that we stay in this place of general fear and worry, and things are not great out there for a lot of people.
Yeah.
But I was having a lovely conversation with my daughter the other day about awareness, and because things have been easy for quite a long time, people went to sleep. And now they're not easy anymore. People are starting to do the research for themselves. They're starting to look at what they can do. And I'm a great believer in doing. I believe as well, and I create in all sorts of senses. But I think you actually have to get your hands dirty and do to make a change.
Yeah, I agree too. It has to come through into reality as well. So yeah, I agree.
Authentic in your life, in the way that you live it, in the things that you encourage in the world. And more people, I think, are seeing that change is needed, and they can do something about it.
Yeah, brilliant. Well,
and from my 200 years in the future, it all looks it looks great.
Yeah, I did. I think I did my 150th birthday or something. And yes, it all looked great. And we're not just like hopefully writing it. I felt like we were streaming the future through, you know. And it was interesting yesterday, one of the authors, Eliza, said she'd bought a copy for her mom. And her mom's not necessarily, you know, into all the stuff we're into, but her mom, after reading it, said, they're describing heaven on earth.
Oh, how beautiful.
Yeah, I thought, yes, that's exactly what we're describing, and that's what's coming. You know, that's for sure what's coming. I don't have any doubt about that we are elevating to a whole new level of play, and this wonderful book gives you some insights into that.
And thank you, Sarah, for bringing it all together, the colours. And Fleur's absolutely amazing art. I'm just in love with her imagery. It's so vibrant, so full of.
Yeah, it's got all the pictures in it too. Some of Fleur's pictures in it.
Just wonderful.
Yeah, and we have a competition, not a competition, but a prize draw going for people who write a love letter to the future and send it to me. And we're going to draw a prize. And there's 7 books, which are our books, which we've all written, and a copy of Fleur's The Fly Free print, which is that one, but a full art print about that big. So,
wonderful.
So anybody who wants to.
Can't wait to read those. Yeah. More beings like us who see that this is going to turn out beautifully.
Yeah, exactly. I think we're needed in the world very much. So it's a great gift for 2022 because, I mean, we'll give people some hope and excitement. That's a good one.
Christmas and coming up.
You can get it on Amazon. Just go onto your Amazon, whatever country, and type in Love Letters from the Future. We're the only one with that name.
Which should trademark.
That's ever amazing, huh? So thank you for reading.
Thank you, Sarah.
Absolutely brilliant. Okay, thanks everybody for watching. Lots of love. Bye.